Hello everyone, Archana is here. Welcome to the second session of the poem Daffodils written by William Wordsworth. In the previous session, we have learned first two stanzas of the poem. Let us just recall about the stanzas, whatever we have learned in the previous session. The poet was wandering pointlessly beside a lake. He was all alone to wander freely again to a patch of clouds floating in the sky over the valleys and the hill. Suddenly, he could weave the large number of daffodils gathered by the side of the lake. They were sheltered under a growing tree. The daffodils resembles the color of gold, and the airy breeze made them wave and dance, rejoice and play. The poet, however, could not estimate their number as they spread along extensive sides of the lake. They resemble, akin to innumerable shining stars that one could see in the night sky in the form of Milky Way. As the poet made an instant glance, he could see myriad of daffodils waving their heads as if they were rejoicing and dancing out of alacrity that is in enthusiasm. Seeing this, the waves of the lake accompanied dancing along with these daffodils, but their sparkling dance was in no way comparable to the delight and cheerfulness of the flowers the poet seems to have confused with, and rapture of delight. Now, let us deal with the stanza 3 and 4 of the poem.
Pearls of Wisdom, Daffodils by William Wordsworth. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in waken or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils.
In the third stanza, the poet speaks about waves, dancing, sparkling, happiness, etc. etc. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. The waves also dance in the breeze, but the daffodils seems happier than the waves. The point is that the entire scene has suddenly been invested with a joyful human like presence. Since waves do not bring as much joy as the yellow flowers, the flowers outdid the water with their happiness. The waves sparkle, which creates another association with the stars. Everything seems to be gleaming and twinkling and shining and sparkling. The poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. The speaker re enters the poem, except he refers to himself in the first person by his profession, a poet. Despite his earlier loneliness, the speaker now can't help but feel happy or gay with such a beautiful vision to look at, or as he puts it, with such joyful and carefree company to hang out with. The flowers and waves feel like companions to him. They are all pals, friends. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. The repetition of gaze tells us that he kept looking at the flowers for a long time. It is as if the speaker enjoys looking at these daffodils at the time, but doesn't realize exactly how great of a gift he has just received with this vision. Apparently, the speaker doesn't think that he fully appreciated the vision at the time. This is a bit odd because he seems to be really enjoying those daffodils. The word wealth expresses a more permanent kind of happiness. It also carries a hint of money that does not quite fit with the supernatural language that has come before. Now, the fourth stanza. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood. Now the speaker explains why the daffodils were such a great gift to him. He moves suddenly into the future, back from the lake and the windy day. He is describing a habitual action, something he does often. First, he sets the scene. He often sits on his couch, kind of feeling blah, that is dull and exciting about life, with no great thoughts and sights. Sometimes his mind is empty and vacant. At other times, he feels pensive, which means he thinks kind of sad thoughts. You can't be both vacant and pensive because one means not thinking and the other means thinking while feeling blue. But he groups the two experiences together because both are vaguely unpleasant and dissatisfying. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. So often, when a speaker gets in these downer moods, the image of the daffodils flashes through his mind. The inward eye expresses what Wordsworth felt to be a deeper spiritual vision. A person cannot share his or her own spiritual vision completely with others, and so it is a form of solitude, being alone, a loneliness, feel of loneliness. But its truth and beauty make it blissful. Why does a speaker think of daftness in exactly these moments? Maybe it is because the contrast between their joy and his unhappiness is so striking. Nonetheless, the vision is spontaneous like a crack of lightning. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. When the memory of the flowers and the lake flashes into his head, he feels happy again. It is almost like the same experience he had while wandering through nature at the beginning of the poem, when the real daffodils pushed the loneliness out of his head. The memory of the daffodils is as good as the real thing. His heart is set to dancing just like the flowers. He dances along with them. They are his cheerful companions once again. To conclude with the fourth stanza, by starting the stanza with for, the poet continues his reasoning for saying that the flowers had brought him wealth. He clarifies why the sight of the flowers was so important in his life. Whenever he lies on his bed in a vacant or thoughtful mood, the daffodils flash upon his inner eye, that is, his imagination. The daffodils have become an everlasting memory for the poet. Whenever he is lonely, so he calls it a bliss of solitude, a blessing of staying alone. And whenever he sees the flowers in his imagination, his heart fills with pleasure and his mind dances with the dancing daffodils. This shows the poet's intense feelings. The poet has been able to depict the landscape and express his mind so vividly in so simple language and form that really draws one's attention. And that is why this poem has been one of the most read and mentioned subjective poems in the history of English literature. Now, let's deal with the major themes of the poem and the literary devices used in the poem Daffodils. Major themes. The major theme of the poem is nature and human involvement in natural beauty. It also points to another theme, the impact of nature on a human. The poem encompasses the thoughts of an adult, why he meanders over the hills, and how this sudden occurrence is a blessing in his solitude. The never ending row of those enchanting flowers impresses him so much that he compares them with the sparkling stars of the galaxy. He is captivated by the startling view of nature. This everlasting impact, triggered by nature, often serves as a delight for the poet when he feels low or in loneliness. Literary devices. Literary devices are used to bring richness and clarity to the text. The writers use them to make their text appealing and meaningful. Wordsworth has also made the poem deeper and richer by using these devices. The analysis of some of the literary devices are used here in this poem. Simile. Simile is a device used to compare one object to another to help readers understand or to clarify the meanings using as or like. There are two similes used in this poem. I wander lonely as a cloud. He compares his loneliness with a single cloud. The second is used in the opening line of the second stanza, continues as the stars that shine. Here Wordsworth compares the endless row of daffodils with countless stars. Personification. Personification is to attribute human characteristics to lifeless objects. The poet has personified daffodils in the third line of the poem, such as, when all at once I saw a crowd. The crowd shows the number of daffodils. The second example of personification is used in the second stanza as tossing their heads and sprightly dance. It shows that the daffodils are humans and that can dance. The third example is in the third stanza, such as in a jocund company. Here he considered the daffodils as his buoyant company, that is cheerful, glad, or happy. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is the use of exaggeration for effect. When the narrator describes the number of daffodils he saw that day, the flowers filled an entire field. They were continuous, they stretched in a never ending line, and he thought he saw 10,000 of them at a single glance. Alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sounds in the same lines of poetry, such as the use of g sound in I gazed and gazed, and the use of wa sound in what wealth the show to me had brought. Metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that makes an implicit, implied, or hidden comparison between two things that are unrelated but which share some common characteristics. In other words, a resemblance of two contradictory or different objects is made based on a single or some common characteristics. Wordsworth has used one metaphor in this poem in the last stanza as they flash upon that inward eye. Here, inward eye represents the sweet memory of daffodils. Imagery. In the poem, the poet uses various things to describe the beauty, joy, and elegance of the daffodils. In the stanza 2, he compares daffodils with a galaxy of stars. In stanza 3, he compares them with the waves of the lake. The poet thus wants us to feel the beauty of nature. The use of imagery makes the reader visualize the writer's feelings and emotions. Wordsworth has used images appealing to the sense of sight, such as lonely as a cloud, a crowd, never ending line, Milky Way, and jocund company. These descriptions help the reader to imagine or feel the same joy felt by the speaker. So, here we have winded up the poem Daffodils. Home assignment. Read the extract given below and answer the following questions. Here you can see the first stanza of the poem Daffodils, followed by questions. Explain the reference to context. What happens to the poet when he is sometime in a pensive mood? What is the bliss of solitude referred to here? What does he mean by the inward eye? How is he affected by the experience of seeing the daffodils? Thank you.